Okay, here we are, live. Hope everyone's doing well. Happy Friday. Oh my gosh, so many comments already. Let me just scan through here. Hi, Demon. Hi, Mike. Hi, Leah. Hi, Ryan. Hey, Paul. Plant Love. Sunship. That's a cool name. Hey, Jan. Hey, Mike. David. Amit. Alec. Patty. Cherry. Tony. All right. Good crew. How's everybody doing? Denard. Mark. Marcy. Nico. Saranish. Hey, Patty. Hey, Graham. Hey, John. Hey, Ted. Hi, Ann. Hey, Alec. Hey, Kelly. Alberta. Cool. Beautiful day. Nice. Colorado's been very rainy for the last couple of days. It's just getting sunny right now. My saguaro, I think is how we say it. Saguaro cactus is blooming for the first time here in Phoenix, kind of like me. That's great. How often do those things bloom? Not very. Can everyone hear me? Someone says I can't hear anything and my volume is up pretty high. Hey, Aphrodite. Hey, Wolfgang. Okay, good. Yeah, you might have to check your volume setting or your output setting or something. Hey, John. Still raining in the mountains in the Front Range of Colorado. Yeah, it's been raining far more than we usually get here. First bloom in 20 years. That's amazing. So cool. I love it. What color are the flowers that bloom? I'm picturing white, but I don't really know. Yeah, Colorado this time of year often gets thunderstorms in the evening. So we'll have very sunny days and then big thunderstorm. Sometimes a good amount of rain for a short time, and then that's it. And dries out, or doesn't dry out, but it stops raining, and maybe get rain the next day or a couple days later. But the last 3 days or so, it's been like just constant rain. Arizona folks, get a hold of each other, get some coffee. Hey, Danielle. Oh no, really? Oh shoot. Danielle is down the street from me. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, I was looking at drainage and just wondering like if, you know, the drainage around these houses can handle this. I'm not sure. In some places, I'm sure it doesn't. Hello from Germany. Awesome. This is no Zoom, only YouTube, right? Yes, that is true. Yeah, there's no Zoom open right now. The Zoom will be double barrel non-duality later in the month, and I'll announce when that'll be shortly, probably today. Hello from Dublin. Hey, Don. Brazil. Awesome. Very cool. All right. Anyone have any questions? You're so welcome, Tomek. Says, thank you for everything. You're very welcome. White flowers on the saguaro cactus every 20 years, or not very frequently, but this one's every 20 years. That's pretty amazing. I want to thank you for introducing us to TRE. This is a comment. I did my second session today, and my facilitator was shocked at how responsive my body is. I'm getting so much relief already. Yeah, it's really a powerful practice or modality. Yep. It's very, very good at energy releasing, regulating energy, emotional releasing, releasing tension, releasing or addressing chronic pain. It's got some pretty amazing effects often. I think I've heard you say that nothing can actually resist anything else. Yes. And that you can never actually find resistance in experience. So is it an illusion like the self? What is it exactly? Yeah, it is an illusion like the self. Um, I would say that the sense of self, the fundamental sense of self, when that drops away, which is pretty late stage realizations, very deep stage, meaning not super common, but it definitely happens, and it's happening more commonly now, I would say. Um, when that falls away, the structure of self, world, inner world, outer world it's just gone. There's nothing there, nothing solid, nothing real or unreal. Um, no self can reify. No self. There's no nothing that can solidify anymore. The illusion is completely dispelled. Um, then, and you'd think that's the end, but it's not. Then what's laid bare is the resistance patterns um, on which the self is built. Um, but it's very fundamental resistance, and it's this at this point this is resolved or um, corrected, I guess, at the energetic level. It's very direct. It's very physically direct. It feels physical. It feels energetic, intense at times, but there's nowhere for anything to hide anymore. So resistance is like a momentary misperception, and it really is belief based. You know, there's beliefs like it shouldn't be this way. Things could be different than they are. Um, there's any ability or possibility to avoid pain or to um, create pleasure, let's say. Like those fundamental misperceptions are very clear now. And when they are, um, you can rectify that misperception much more easily. What's interesting though is sometimes people still find a lot of resistance. I can't say they resist because there's no one doing the resisting. And you could almost say this whole thing now is based on just conditions. But for some people, it drags out for a while and it can be intense. Um, but again, you're face to face, let's say, using conventional language. You're now face to face with the fundamental issue. So there's nowhere for it to hide. There's nowhere for you to hide anymore. So that's how I would say that the self and resistance are related. Resistance is kind of like it's like a movement or a tendency, let's say, of the psyche. Whereas self feels like a real thing, feels like a real structure, feels like something. But they're very closely related and they're both ultimately an illusion. Okay. That was a question by Ryan. Um, going on down. Get back to where I was here. Frank, hi from Spain. Hey, Frank. Plant Love. Can I ask you about the online retreat in July? Yes. Is it okay to sign up even though I can't stay the whole time because of time difference? Yes. I think you said you were in, did you say Germany? So last night I made a schedule that you can use in um European Standard Time. I think that's called, right? So no, Central European Time. Um, so it's um 8 hours different than where I'm at. So I made this schedule on a Google Doc and I'll put it I'll probably link it in the main doc, in the main schedule. and it's just offset. So it shows which ones will be live for you, and then I built a schedule that you can use in your time frame that's during the day, basically. And then you'll watch the previous recordings from the day before for the ones that are like in the middle of the night for you. So that may be helpful, but most people do that. They adjust their schedule. Some people get crazy and like stay up really, really late and like change to my schedule in Europe for 5 days, but that's really hard to do. This is just a way you can like do the lives, which are, um, available, and then you can watch the recorded, um, lives from the previous day, and then the schedule's still built to be pretty similar to what we're doing here. So I'll put that up in the near future. John, I'm off to Austria in 30 minutes. Awesome. Any tips for staying present in a conference setting? Yeah. Um, it kind of depends what kind of conference it is, right? So, like, if you're required to interact with people a lot, like if you're a vendor, there's going to be one kind of answer. If you're there for your occupation or your industry, but you don't necessarily have to be on stage, so to speak, the whole time, there maybe is a different answer. In the second case, I would say don't over engage in conversation with people. Sometimes we have a belief, and this is just a behavioral thing. We have a belief that in social situations, like we need to push ourselves to be like hyper social, or we need to interact a lot to look good or make it seem like we're fitting in or something. But often that's just not true. Like you can often hang back and be reserved without being shy or avoidant. And you communicate just fine, and people think nothing odd of you. In fact, they often think that because you're reserved, and when you do speak, you say something meaningful, and that you're present, um, that you have more meaningful dialogue or conversation. So one thing is just don't unnecessarily engage in conversation just to talk, right? Um, and that may free up a lot of your time and energy, actually. And then when you're not engaging directly with people or having conversations and so forth, um, I don't know if you're going to be walking around or if it's that kind of a situation, or if you're sitting the whole time. But I would say engage the senses, especially if you're moving around or walking around. Feel your feet as they touch the floor. Find that contact point, and then see, is there anything solid there at all? Follow the sensation up into your legs as they move as you walk. Feel the sensation. Feel the cool or warm drink in your hand as you move. Um, Listen to the entirety of the whole background soundscape. It may be loud, but you can still take it all in, and just listen to it. Let it wash over you. Let it wash through you. Yeah. As you move, notice every time you turn your head, even every time you blink your eyes, the visual experience literally disappears and reappears. So it's completely fresh and new every time. The visual field appears out of nothing. Appears out of nowhere, right? Notice it's not continuous. So this is how I recommend it if there's some, movement and things like that. You like engaging in the senses, leaning into the senses, but doing it purposefully and mindfully, knowing, okay, this is actually sensation. Oh, this is actually sound, and spending time doing that with each sense. And when you get good at it, you'll be able to start to experience the synesthesia, which is you're starting to experience the senses as one experience. Um, It may just be overlap at first, but at some point, you may notice that you really are feeling, seeing, hearing kind of all as the same one happening, which definitely is possible for you. That's kind of what I would recommend. But even when you're talking with people, even if you have to talk a lot, which tends to put people in their head for a while, um, even then, lean in, like really lean in and listen intently to what they're saying fully. Give that your full attention instead of trying to hang back in your mind or trying to be somewhere else or be consciousness or something. Just lean in, really engage in what that person's saying, and then just enjoy it. Enjoy the conversation, the exchange of information, the knowledge, the rapport you're forming or relationship you're forming or whatever it is. Okay. Hello from Michigan. Hello. Looking forward to the book on Audible. Oh yeah. Um I think I can get it done. I'll have the recordings done like probably in the next couple days. I think I should be able to get it up on Audible within 2 weeks at the most. I don't think it's a hard process because the recordings are done. There's a little bit of editing to do, but not much left. So hopefully in the next couple weeks. Yeah. Leah, if we have a long question, should we wait for the double barrel? No, not necessarily. I'll try to read if it's long, I can still read it. But I would suggest if it's a really long question, sometimes when people ask a question in person and it takes them 2.5 minutes to ask the question, at the end, I know what the question was and it was like one sentence. But sometimes you have to sit with it, or you can even say it out loud to yourself and then formulate it into something that's a little more concise. Often that works. But yeah, some questions are just longer. Been doing TRE for a couple months now, and it's been just helpful with being more relaxed. Yeah, it's very good it's very good just at the physical level, working with energy and the physicality of the body without anything conceptual or any type of insight practice or any type of awareness practice. Patty, just finished my book, did most of the practices, and I'm feeling rather neutral about things that used to make me sad, mad, glad, etc. It's weird. Yeah, that happens for sure. It won't stay that way. Might stay that way for a while. What I'm guessing is later on, whenever you decide to go back through the book, you'll get another layer of stuff out of it. I think most people tell me that. They say that once they go through it more than once, that they see more and more depth to what was put in there, because I really did put I put a lot in there that you can unpack for a long time. I wrote it over a long period of time and I revised it many, many times. So even though it might seem verbose at sometimes, the way I'm saying things is very specific. So you may get more out of it, or it may feel like it hits differently the next time. But it's not uncommon to experience that neutrality, that kind of like the magnitude of your emotional spectrum and all that stuff kind of just goes way down after some exposure to this. Sometimes it's after a retreat or a lot of inquiry or reading a book, or we just come to this place where it's like we don't feel a lot of ups and don't feel a lot of downs. It feels more neutral. um that's perfectly okay. The world of mind identification is like a roller coaster, but it's also strangely can be kind of numb and distanced from what's actually happening. But internally in the mind, it feels very much like a roller coaster. It's very dynamic at the mental level. When that dynamism slows down, which it will as we disidentify from thought and conscious uh, identity structures in consciousness, as we disidentify from all of that, the dynamism of mind identification calms down dramatically, and that can feel like sometimes even feel like something's missing, something's been lost, or a lot of what you were is just not there. It's not really true. It's just what you were taking yourself to be has been um, dramatically reduced in its expression. But what you really are, what's the deeper truth, is not fully accessed yet. And as you start to access that, things start to feel very, very different. The depth of that is far beyond anything that the mind can comprehend. So usually this is a sort of transitional phase. Thanks for the question, Patty, or comment. I think I just lost my place here. Oh, yeah, there we go. Dennis or Denise. Okay. As a musician, there is always a song playing in my head. Yeah. I recognize some fear of letting this thought go because I believe I am somehow practicing the song. Will I play the song when needed? Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's just a fear. The mind is really good at doing things like that. Like, well, this is how things are. So, boy, if they're not like this anymore, ooh, scary things can happen, right? It could do that with anything. But no, I think whether the song is there or not is fine. Some people have the opposite reaction. They want to know how to get rid of that song. They think it's terrible and the worst thing, in their experience. And then I just point out, like, same thing. Your mind is just telling you that it's fine that it's there. Um, in fact, the more you resist it, often the more it stays. But in your case, if you're concerned that it's doing something, it's serving a purpose there. Um, I would say, I, in my experience, you're going to be just fine, even if it does quiet down. Even if the mind isn't playing songs in the background all the time, you're going to be fine. You'll be just as creative, if not more creative. You'll see what the mind doesn't want to see, and this doesn't just go with this situation. This goes for everything when we talk about this. What the mind doesn't want to see is that it's not doing anything. It's not creating reality. It thinks it is, in one sense. It's not creating anything. It's a reflection. The creativity comes out of, I mean, this whole universe is creating itself right now. Doesn't get any better than that. But the mind wants to say, "Oh no, I'm the one moving through the room. I'm the one making choices. I'm the one interacting with the environment in intelligent way or meaningful way." But it's not like that at all. So the creativity that comes out of nowhere. It's amazing. It's astounding. But the thought process doesn't like that because it doesn't make sense to it, and it can't take credit. Germany, yeah, cool. You know what? I'm gonna actually put the schedule. I'll put that schedule link here so you guys can find it. Anyone from Europe? This is the schedule for the retreat in July that I made into European time. And you guys can look at this and tell me if I made any mistakes, because it's possible I did. Give me one moment. I'm just going to put this up. It's a Google Doc. Yeah, definitely look it over. And if you think I made any mistakes on it, let me know, because I don't want to screw anyone up. But I'm almost certain that the lives in European time line up with the lives in Mountain Time. That's the biggest thing I wanted to make sure of, because the rest of the schedule you can do whatever you want. I just made a sample schedule for you, but um, okay. There's the link. We're back here. Let me put the link here and see if that works. Hopefully it does. Cool. Okay, let me see if I can find my place in comments again. Okay. Paul D. It seems there has been a lifetime of looking away, and the ego finds all manner of methods to look on the outside. Burying the head in a phone, alcohol, eating. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of distractions, a lot of distracting habits, a lot of even addictions, right? Um, there's a lot of habit force to that. There's a lot of habit force um, to distraction, redirecting our attention, trying to cover up our difficult emotions with a sort of standard sensation of the next drink I take, whatever. Um, endless distractions, right? Shopping, buying stuff, getting in arguments with people, arguing online about nonsense. All there's endless just ways to distract ourselves, right? So um, here's the deal, though. The good news is you don't have to figure out how to undo all that. You don't. Sometimes you might, that in some ways, like sometimes you do benefit a lot from a practical means or a skillful means with a certain area in your life of addiction or whatever. Like it can be helpful. Anything can be helpful, right? But when you look at the magnitude of this and how long it's been going on, it will seem like it's going to take you that long to undo it. unravel it or stop the bad habits. It's not. Um, and you don't have to stop all the bad habits to wake up, right? So I often will say the first awakening, if you really are motivated for that, meaning that's the way to go. There's no other, nothing else is going to satisfy. You know it. You know that's the path. You're willing to give yourself to it. When someone's in that position, I tell them, don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about trying to integrate or emotion work, or just don't worry about all that stuff. Strike while the iron's hot. That shift is so big and such a pervasive shift in your experiential um, insights, that the necessary work that follows, the integration work and emotion work and all that, it will come for sure, but it's just so much easier. It's easier to know where it is and how to do it and why you're doing it. Um, so yeah, now not everybody's lined up that way. Some people feel more inclined to do a lot of that sort of emotion work beforehand, um, and that's fine. That's all great. But either way, what really breaks the spell of the need to distract ourselves, what really breaks the spell of the need to replace one experience with another, to feel in control, to avoid all of that stuff. What breaks that spell is actually a very small number of very specific insights into the way we experience moment to moment reality. And that's what I'm pointing to all the time, right? Um, Now, some of these insights are so deeply buried under conditioning that you have to kind of take them in order somewhat. There's no rules to this. This can happen in any way it wants to happen, and sometimes it happens very randomly. But generally speaking, there are certain fixations that are very deeply buried, and you're not going to reverse that fixation before a much more superficial one, if that makes sense. Um, so some of them are so deeply buried, under conditioning, that it takes a while to get to them, um, or it takes a sort of preliminary insight to get to that insight. But again, it's a very small number, really. It's a handful, small number of very important fixations that create the sense of a self apart, the sense of duality, the sense of agency, the sense of seeking, the sense that we need to seek, the sense that there's some way the world should be that it's not, and that we can fix it. All of those are just illusions. Um, and without them, you function pretty seamlessly, pretty simply. It doesn't mean that there's never pain. It doesn't mean that everything's pleasure. That's the misperception. But it can be deeply satisfying when you've deconstructed um, the apparatus that believes that there's something real about pain, and there's something real about pleasure, and there's something real about choice, and there's something real about agency, and there's something real about duality. Once those are deconstructed, it's a very different kind of way to live. It's satisfying in a way that nothing in the realm of pleasure and pain can be. So focus on the insights, give yourself to the process of awakening, unbinding, let it take all of that away, all of that feels like you away. And the habits and stuff, don't get too sidetracked with that stuff. Some of them are going to be there for a while. It's fine. Let them be there. Struggling with those often, especially really deeply rooted habits, struggling with them often strengthens them. And that's one of the most frustrating things about addiction, right? I think Paul Hederman says, I know he does. He said a lot of times, when you're alcoholic or you're an addict, you think you have a problem, but that's not the truth. The truth is you are the problem, right? And when you're in it, it's not funny. It's scary. So, but the fear arises from the belief that you have to control it, and the attempt to control it just feeds it, right? Because it's all about control. It's about controlling your experience. So sometimes it's a matter of, okay, do the emotion work. As a side effect of that, these things will soften. These things will calm down. But if you're interested in waking up, do the insight work, and then do the emotion work, and then keep doing the insight work until they're kind of the same thing, and it will just deepen itself at some point, and then these addictions will fall away over time. Anything to avoid looking into the darkest caves where the treasure is. Yeah, that's the second part of the question I just answered. Don't That's the key, right? You said it right there. We don't want to look in the darkest places where the treasure is for some reason. There's not even a reason we don't want to look there, except for habit, the habit force of the mind that wants to stay prominent in your experience. And even that saying too much, it doesn't have a will. It's just doing what it does. So following your deep instinct that's irrational at some point to go into that cave is what this is all about. It's also why I emphasize that this can be painful, that there is a dark nights of the soul, that the shadow work is important. Some people really don't like that I say that. Like really. I've had people tell me they've known me for a couple of years, even been to my retreats. And only years later did they tell me they're like, I used to hate it when you would talk about shame. I didn't understand why. I'd say, why do you need to talk about that? And then they understand. Now they get it. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad I finally went through that. So I don't say it to be dramatic. I don't say it because it's an opinion. I say it's because it's part of this process and it's what's going to set you free. It's what's going to set you free. You have to address it at some point. In one way or another, you're going to go down into that shadow. It's part of the deal, part of the hero's journey, right? Do you want to? No, of course you don't. Did I want to? No. Does anyone want to? No. You can think you want to for a while. This is my favorite Yoda quote in the book, right? Luke Skywalker going into the cave. He's like, I'm not afraid to go in there. And Yoda's like, oh, you will be. You will be. Right. You will be. Because sometimes when people are very much at a superficial level of identification, mind identification, they'll be like, "I'm not scared of death. I'm not scared of like, oh, well, you will find out what fear really is. You'll find out. It's okay. You can go through it, but you will be surprised. Um, that's the shadow. That's the cave. Plato talked about it. Jung talked about it. It's part of this deal. You know. And you can't really go you go alone, but there's a value to the sangha, knowing that, sometimes when I'm talking to somebody and they're going through this very dark place, and I say, I know it feels like you're totally alone, and you kind of are in one sense, right? Because the sense of being a self is always alone. It's always lonely to be a self, right? Because you're apart from everything. So when you're facing that directly, yeah, it's lonely. I can't stop that. And I don't want to take that experience away from you, but I will tell you, you're in good company. You're in good company. All of those who have walked this path before you, they're actually there with you. They're there with you. But that, you know, it can't free you from having to feel what you have to feel. You still have to feel it. And you'll find out feeling it's okay, ultimately. That was a great question, Paul. Kelly, ever hear of Peter Crone? I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't think I've heard of Peter Crone. Lubina, hi. Okay, yeah. So anyone who's just joining, I put a link down here in the comments for the Google Doc that I made a schedule customized for Europe for the July retreat if you're interested, and you can check it out. Hey, Alec, I hear you and others you interview say something along the lines of, it's literally right in front of your face. It is right in front of your face. It's looking you in the face. I feel myself stop and look very carefully. Yes. So I was chatting with somebody that I've been talking to who's kind of pushing up against awakening for the last several months, probably the last couple of years. And just, I think it was yesterday, I said to this person, look at anything really, really closely. Look at anything closely enough. Anything. And the entirety of living truth will be revealed. Enlightenment will be revealed. But you have to look close. And then you have to look closer. And then you have to notice when your attention bounces back into your mind and starts analyzing, and then go back to it and look closer. You have to let it show you what it is. Is this feeling that I can almost remember something? Yes, that's it. but you can't remember it because it's not gone. But I know what you're talking about, and you're right on the money. Yeah. It's like the tip of my tongue. Can you point there, please? Yeah, it's not anywhere else. Your mind is still trying to describe it, right? It's trying to put it in a category. Oh, it's a memory. Oh, no, it's not a memory. It's just outside of my ability to say it. It's the tip of my tongue. When we say tip of my tongue, we mean I can't think of the word. What's the word? I need to put it into a word. I want you to go backwards from that. I don't want you to put anything into a word. I want you to go straight back into the root of what you are and just go that way and don't stop. Don't turn back until there's nothing left, until there's no mind moving, until the mind is not stirring or rustling anymore at all. Go right into your root. And when the mind goes, oh, is it this or is it that? That's a thought. Don't worry about it. Keep going. When the body starts reacting, oh, and your mind goes, oh, the body's reacting. Heart rate's going up. I could die. Those are thoughts. Just keep going. Don't deviate. Don't separate yourself at all. Don't waver. That's how you do it. You got to go do that by yourself. It's this feeling like I can almost remember something. Yep, we just did that one. That was good. That's really good. Very much. It's true. It has that resonance with something ancient, and it is. It's beyond you, though. It's beyond anything in your life or your comprehension. Ashley says that being silent in social situations is what my manager and I do when it's just the two of us in the pharmacy. Yes. We just work in silence and it's wonderful. It's so nice when you can be around someone who can actually be in silence because then when you talk, it's meaningful and, but silence also is a very nice way to communicate. Plant Love, how did you know about the online retreat in July? Plant Love is psychic. I haven't fully announced it yet. I'm doing it over a couple days. I announced it to the Patron Circles members first because I told them I would announce all retreats to them first. For the online retreat, doesn't matter. For in-person retreats, it's going to matter for sure. Just because of seating and stuff and rooms, not seating, but rooms. But then I announced on Facebook yesterday. And then today I have a video coming out later. It's a very short video that announces it. And then I'm going to announce it on my email list, which is the biggest announcement soon, but I'm migrating my email list over to a different platform. So then in a couple days, it'll be widely announced. Can someone put the link to the page, not the sign up link or anything, but the link to the page on my website right here, where it has the instructions and then the links? Okay. This is Lubena. Can you speak about the loss of control? I feel like the more unraveled things get, the more it feels like there isn't and never has been any control. Yes. Brings up a set of thoughts that feel nihilistic. Okay, well, here's the thing. And it's good that you very much know the difference between thoughts and the actual physical experience, right? So the deeper realization goes, the more divergent thoughts are going to get from the physical experience, and the more bizarre they're going to get, and sometimes the more scary in one sense they're going to get, or just strange because they have no way of describing what's happening, right? So the ego gets a little defended, starts to say weird things, tells you you're going to go crazy, tells you nothing matters at all, and nothing, nihilism, or it'll tell you. The other fear people get is solipsism. I'm the only one in the world. I'm the only thing in the universe. It's just a bizarre way the mind interprets what you're experiencing. I don't mean to laugh because I know it's not comfortable when it happens, but these are just beliefs and belief structures. Keep doing what you're doing and they'll just drop away. They'll just go away. You won't have to navigate that very long, probably. Enjoy what's actually there instead of the interpretation of what's there. And your enjoyment will go far beyond anything the mind can possibly conceive. But you have to learn to enjoy it. Frank, in my experience, in Angelo's experience, is there a relationship between lucid dreaming and awakening? I don't know. I mean, do people who have more lucid dreaming preceding or after awakening? I think probably I don't see an association like that. Um, I do know people who have woken up who did lucid dreaming before. I also know people who do lucid dreaming and have not woken up. Um, for me, it would be quite the opposite, right? Lucid dreaming would be the belief that you're in control of the dream, but I don't sense any sense of agency in this waking dream. So it's not in the dream either. It's funny. And the dream now to me is very subtle. It just feels like movements of consciousness. So it's not believable. There's no story really any more than there's a story here. So it's kind of anticlimactic when it comes to dreams in my experience because the dream mind gets just as quiet as the waking mind. But if you're inclined to do it and explore consciousness that way, go for it. There's a guy named Stephen Norquist who has like one obscure video from years ago about enlightenment. And he's I don't agree with everything he said. A few things he said I didn't agree with. But he's pretty clear in a lot of ways and clearly realized a deep stage of enlightenment. Um, you might be able to find that video, but he talks about lucid dreaming. He started by doing lucid dreaming. Sunship. Such a cool name. I think I heard in one of your videos that an I am emerges moment to moment in the sense fields themselves. Can you say a bit about that? I might have misheard this. It's not that the sense of I am emerges in the sense fields. What it is that if you experience a sense of purity or sort of undifferentiated consciousness that feels like I am to you, that itself is, I'm not going to say it's an illusion, but I'm going to say it's a reflection. And when you experience it, not as the sense is I am, but that exact experience that you're calling I am is actually the sense itself. It's a whole different ball game. It's like another order of clarity. And you see what you were interpreting as I am. Does that make sense? Nisargadatta said, when you regress properly, the I am sense will disappear. But I will say nothing's lost. You just see it for what it is, which is more clarity and proper non-dual realization. Clear, unsullied, ongoing non-dual experience. Aphrodite. I've been going through some health issues and it's become obvious to how much identity I have built in around such issues. Yeah, for sure. It's much harder to recognize thoughts and sensations as such. Oh, it's so much harder to recognize thoughts and sensations as such. I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking or saying, but the health thing is one of those deals where you can have an awakening, you can feel, this sort of profound presence and clarity and equanimity of mind and consciousness. But then all of a sudden, a couple years later, you have a health crisis. Then you find out how much identity you still had in the body, which is okay. It needs to happen. You need to address it one way or another, come into direct contact with that. It can be surprising. It's very immediate. And it can be quite intense. But just like identification with the mind, you can also disidentify through that. It's another form of shadow. John, I very much like the recording Working with the Sense Gates and wonder if there's a guided meditation from you on this. Well, the problem with this is I don't know what I make and when I make it and how I name it. I've made probably thousands of videos or something. Maybe 1,000. I don't know how many videos I made. It's a lot. Maybe 1,000. And I have 60 some guided meditations on a free app that hopefully everyone here knows about. I'm sure I work in the sense fields on some of those, but I don't know which ones. But if you're interested in working in the sense fields, the best way to look to find those videos is look at the playlist non-duality. I think people don't use the playlists I make as fully as they could because they really are sorted by insight and topic. But the way the algorithm works, if you just wait till YouTube tells you what to watch, it doesn't go by playlist. It just shows you my newest video and sometimes an older video. But the playlists are, fixed. They're always there. So you can check those out. But yeah, if you're wanting to work in the sense fields, look at my non-duality playlist. That's the one that's mostly directly addressing the sense fields. DVD Mon. Will there be cool soundscapes for the audiobook? I did not put soundscapes in those. I feel like I would annoy people more than please them if I did that. Do audiobooks usually have soundscapes? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks. Leah. Okay. She's going to try to put it into the fewest words, and I look forward to that. Would you recommend doing anything while you are doing your TRE? I would say the number one thing to do while doing your TRE, put your attention in the sensations, just the sensations in your body. Like, just keep your attention there as much as you can. It'll wander up into your mind and stuff, but just keep returning it to the actual sensations and just give your body permission to just move however it feels totally natural to move. Yeah, I wouldn't do meditation or self-inquiry while you're doing it necessarily. Maybe on rare occasion for some reason, but for the most part, no. Let the body just, it's like natural meditation for the body, but it's instead of natural meditation, it's natural movement. Paul D, you have mentioned a second book. Are there still? Yeah, I'll probably do one. Yeah, I'll probably do one at some point. It'll be much shorter. Everything you need is in the first book. But some of these very specific ways of looking at things for later stages of realization, I could probably put in another book. But they're in the first book. They're just not very, they're kind of hidden. But there's inquiries all over that are the same inquiries I work with people who are going through non-dual and no self-realization. Okay. I lost my place again. Every once in a while, this thing will scroll a whole bunch at once. I don't know why. Okay, good. I'm going to open this real quick to make sure. That's the one. Thank you for doing that. Okay, cool. I was just checking the link someone put there. So there's a link in the comments for the retreat if anyone's interested in going. It's an online retreat. Let's see. Okay. Going back up to my comments. Just read the chapter on thoughts. This is Mike. Just read the chapter on thoughts. You say that thoughts are just sounds heard internally. That's not all they are, right? But that's a lot of what thoughts are. The thought popped up that it's more than just a sound. What is that made out of? The thought that says, that's more than just a sound. It's a sound in your mind, isn't it? It's a little different experientially because it's not like you hear it out here, you hear it in here, but it's still a reflection of the sound, right? Or a reflection of another thought. So in the book on thoughts, or in the chapter on thoughts, basically what I say is the reflective mind, what mind is the reflective capacity, right? Or when I say mind, or we can say what consciousness is the reflective capacity of mind. So it reflects one of the five senses, primarily auditory, which is self-talk, narrative, and the visual sense, which are visual images, right? Now, some people don't have the visual images or have vague visual images, right? So you can imagine a smell and a taste, but it's much more subtle, right? You can imagine a sensation as well. It's kind of more subtle as well. But the ongoing narrative, the yakety yak of the mind all day, it's a narrative. It's words, language, right? And so one of the five senses and another thought. When you say the language processing center, are you thinking about the language processing center? Are you thinking in terms of, no, there must be a languaging processing center here? That's the thought, right? That's the narrative in your mind. Do you actually see a language processing center? And if you do, what does it look like? Looks like a visual image that you're imagining. Because you're not seeing the white matter of your brain, I promise you that. Because your eyes are turned outward, not inward. Does that make sense? But when you start having thoughts reflect thoughts, reflecting thoughts, that's when you get that inward experience that feels like mind identification. Thinking without realizing you're thinking. That's mind identification. Cool. Denard Lawrence, the paradox of vastness and the most finite singularity is quite meaningful experiencing. Totally, totally. So that's one of the ones that's hard to talk about. Language is not good at talking about a lot of what I talk about, but this specifically, it's so contradictory that it doesn't make sense to say it really, but it is true. It's like I've never gone anywhere and haven't been in any time. Yes. And when you see that really clearly, then you understand every time and everywhere at the same time. When in crowds, it's like watching a movie. Yeah. Yeah. Am I moving through the crowd? Is the crowd moving through me? Is this coming? Is this going? None of those have meaning. It's all a self responding experience. Leah. Okay. Here's the question she's been formulating. After shift, feeling a repressed teen come out. Yeah. Had a very traumatic childhood. Basically, I'm wrestling with combining old tough girl self and adult nurturing self. You you're doing shadow work, first of all. Um One of the beliefs that, well, how can I say this? So you do have to kind of go back through all these developmental stages. Everyone does. Now, if you've had a lot of turmoil in childhood and young adulthood and trauma and all of it, right? Violence, it's going to have a lot more intense texture. Some of this work is for sure. But what it can add to that is this belief that I'm somehow different from everyone else because of this. And that adds a surprising amount of weight to it. It's going to be intense for you, of course, but I will say at some point this becomes a very level playing field. In really deep stage realization, it doesn't matter if you've had the best family growing up or you've had total trauma. In fact, it may be a little better in the latter when it comes to really, really deep stage realization, because you're now confronting the fundamental misperception of existence. And there it doesn't matter what your conditioning is, there's something in us that will not want to see that, right? Um, so the reason I'm saying this is just to put it in perspective for you that yeah, you're going to go through some heavy stuff for a while, and maybe more than a lot of people around you go in the same stage of things, maybe less than some. But don't turn that into a thing either, right? Don't add more extra weight because of that. Just do what there is to do. One thing at a time, one moment at a time, one identity at a time, one sensation at a time, one emotion at a time. Be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, be accepting of the whole process and experience, and trusting. Learn to trust more and more. The more you trust, um, really what's right in front of your face, you know, even if it's anger or what's internal, if it's anger, self doubt, whatever is coming up, just trust it. Go, okay, this is the universe showing me what I need to see right now to unbind. That's it. That's what it is. That's what everything is. Your partner getting mad at you because of your patterns, whatever, like anything, whatever it is, people misunderstanding you, um, things that are completely unfair. That's the universe going, here, I want to show you how to let go even of this. I want to show you how to let go of fairness. I want to show you how to let go of the need to be healed, the need to be this or that. Like it's going to show you how to let go of everything if you just take that opportunity. So it's really becoming more and more trusting and open to the process. Um, and just know you're going to feel some intense stuff. And it can be helpful to talk to somebody who works very directly with emotion stuff, um, around trauma, right? You may do that for a while with somebody. It may be really helpful to get through certain phases of it. especially if it feels really stuck. You just can't get in. There's no way in, and you just feel something's there, but you can't get to it. If you're getting to it, if you know what it is, you're like, oh, this is the angry, rebellious teenager who was just pissed off because no one ever cared about her. Whatever it is, like then you're seeing clearly. It's okay. Just hold that whole experience. Be compassionate toward all of it, including where you are now. That you can only take so much at a time. Just be compassionate towards all of it. But if it feels really stuck, fixed, and you just can't get access to it, you can work with somebody who works one-on-one about this stuff. Non-dual teacher or someone like Michael Zaroff does the stuff around this as well, or the Scott Killaby inquiry people. I think they're reasonably good at this kind of stuff. Byron Katie has exercises you can work through, but any kind of really intensive inquiry around emotion and belief around emotion, all that stuff is very helpful. You can do it on your own for sure, but it may be a little quicker at some portions working with somebody who's skilled in that area. But just understand, as things deepen, you're going to come into contact with very intense existential fears, and that everybody does. There's no one gets out of that. And sometimes the better your conditioning has been, the harder that is, actually. Can be. Because you don't want to face it. It's like when you've been uncomfortable most or all of your life, it's not as bad. When you're like, oh, okay. Overt terror, out of nowhere. I can handle that. I've been through it. Hopefully that's helpful. Yida Korn. I just wanted to say that I'm incredibly grateful for all the videos. Oh, you're welcome. Some people tell me I make too many. People get mad at me. They literally leave comments like, stop making so many videos. You don't need to make this many. They get really angry. I'm like, why do you watch them? Don't subscribe to my channel. I don't understand what's that problem? But I just make them because I feel like making them, and I think they're helpful to people, and they tell me they're helpful. And even if I make a video of the seeming same topic that I did before, when I make it today, it's different. It's always different. Conditions are different. The world is different. You're different. I'm different. All the conditions are fluctuating all the time, endlessly. Everything is new all the time. The whole universe is new all the time. Everything is new. So this video came out of nowhere. It doesn't matter if it uses some of the same words as a previous video. It could have an effect that another one didn't. And so that's why I enjoy just keep making them. Feels like the right thing to do for me at this point. So that's what I do. So I'm happy they're helpful. Carrie, can you talk about how emotions play out? Seems like there are sensations in the body, yes, and thoughts come suggesting it's an emotion, yes. Are there emotions, or is it simply body sensations and thoughts? It's pretty much body sensations and thoughts. When you deconstruct it and you look really closely, that's what you see. Body sensations, and then beliefs, specifically beliefs that you have to do something about it, react to it, formulate a stance, plan, view, opinion, defend yourself, right? Those kinds of reactions are the ones you want to see until it just becomes a sensation. It's just like, oh, it's a sensation and maybe a physiologic reaction. Tears, like maybe you feel sadness and tears. It doesn't have to be more than that, actually, at all. It doesn't. And when you can feel the energies directly, often you don't even know what emotion it is. It doesn't matter. It's just it's too pure to be defined by a category. As long as you're feeling. Otherwise, it could be kind of like bypassing to say, oh, there's no emotions, or you got to go down and through it. Leah, part 2. Men especially make me want to say, sit the F down. Wait, to them or to you? Like all the time, and I'm kind of scared of my ability to be destructive. Oh, okay. Sit the fuck down. So, okay, I'll make an assumption. So, okay, when we're talking about reactivity that you address after awakening and so forth, reactivity toward family members, people we are emotionally connected to, and probably mostly 2 categories: our children or our lover or romantic partner. Those are the ones that are going to trigger you the most. They're just going to trigger you the most, right? And it's really because it's a different part of our identity, or maybe even a whole different identity that we're engaging here. The emotionally connected identity. There's a whole different set of brain structures in the default mode network that get activated when we're emotionally connected to somebody. So your reactions may be completely different than the kind of reactions you would have with the same exact situation with a coworker or a friend, where you wouldn't care what they said. But if it's someone you're emotionally connected to, you suddenly care too much about what they said, and you want to, whatever, respond, react, get mad at them, get mad at yourself, whatever it is. So these reactions can be directed all different ways, at that person, at yourself, all of it, right? Um, a couple of things I would say that can be really helpful here. One is really look into your beliefs about the importance of what they think about you. There's a nice saying, what you think about me is your business. It's not my business, right? And what that means is, when I look out into the world at anybody, people who are close to me, people who are not close to me, um, if I can say, you know what, they have a right to believe anything they need to believe about me. I'm not going to, if I try to change that, if I try to manipulate that in any way, their view of me, um, I'm, I'm not honoring that. I'm trying to control something about them. I'm trying to control their view, right? Why? What if I actually give them permission to just believe whatever they want and not worry about it? Well, it's freedom is what it is. It's really nice to not have to worry about that. Um, so a lot of times our reactions are bound up in that kind of thing. We don't realize it, but we're trying to manipulate their view of us somehow. Um, now that can be that that can go very deep. It can go from like an active situation where you feel very triggered and you just remind yourself, okay, what they think of me is their business. I don't need to defend anything. And I actually want to support and honor their autonomy of view. They can have any view they want. I'm not here to control that. That can be really um, decompressing in an intense situation. But even deeper, if you live that just in a very passive way, you'll start to absorb that into a deeper part of yourself, where it's like you stop acting inauthentic. You'll realize a lot of even how you act in general around people, maybe the way you dress, maybe the way you speak, all of that is actually possibly subtly manipulative, right? This is just everyone. It's inauthenticity. Inauthenticity is and people pleasing, even people pleasing. It's all inauthentic, and it's ultimately about some kind of control. We're trying to control the environment. We're trying to control other people's view of us. I want you to think I'm a really nice person, so you're not mean to me, right? So when you really digest this, you start to feel a different kind of confidence. It's a confidence that, like, you don't have to convey or communicate. It's not a confidence that you're trying to project onto others. It's a confidence that, like, some people are going to like me and some people aren't. It really doesn't matter. What does matter and what does make me feel settled is to be honest with myself and with others, including who I want to spend time around. And then things get a lot simpler. You just find that you're not around people that have a lot of baggage more, you know what I mean? That you have a more of a simple and natural instinct of just not to engage certain people because they're just difficult to be around. Um, and you don't have any responsibility to engage anybody, right? And so you'll just naturally live that, and you'll find that relationships get much easier, simpler, straightforward, and so forth. Okay. Let me know if any of that was helpful. Thomas, can you comment on the play of awakening, mind identification, identity and mission, and life purpose? Oh my gosh. Oh, well, buckle up your seatbelts. We're going into outer space. You know, how I would answer this question is going to depend a lot of times on where the person is who's asking it, to be honest, and I don't know you. So it kind of sometimes depends on where you're coming from. Because in deeper stages of realization, identification, identity, mission, and purpose go down the drain. But I might not say that to somebody who really has a lot of identity there. Um, and in practical terms, sometimes I might even suggest to somebody that they clarify their purpose in life, right? So nothing I say is universal. Definitely not. Depends on where things are for you. By the time you get to the place where you realize There's really no purpose, meaning, solidity, division, identity, self, others. You're ready for that. And it looks very clear and obvious, and it's fine. You could say then, even then, you could still say, sure, there's a purpose though. Your purpose is to give yourself fully to the process of unbinding and let the spontaneity carry itself deeper. That's the purpose. It's not your purpose. It's the impulse of awakening. So yeah, you can talk about these things in a lot of different ways. But um but I would say to back way up to someone who's just starting to engage this process, and you may be farther along than that, I don't know. But someone who's just starting to engage this process, I really like to point to authenticity with yourself. So sitting with yourself and just going, well, what's really important to me? Like, what's really, really important to me? What do I really want to do with my life? Or say the next 10 years of my life? Um, and just give yourself permission to answer that without any influence from your beliefs about what your parents want, your friends want, your lover wants, what you think you should do to be a good person. Forget all that. What does your instinct tell you to do? You know? And if it tells you my life's purpose is to start a animal shelter, then I would never try to talk you into engaging this awakening process right now. It will come to you when it's time. Um, and so then it can probably be helpful to formulate a purpose in a clear, concise way. Eric Ireland, the Listen to Sleep podcaster, developed a course on the hero's journey, and he's really wonderful about the way he accesses it and utilizes it. It's beautiful. And you might want to check his stuff out. It's really cool. I've talked to him about this personally, and I love how instinctually he navigates this. So for him, the way it played, at least one of the ways it played out, was like when he was much younger, his aunt told him about this. Your life is a hero's journey. Find what you want to do. And he said he had visited a mountainside, and he said, I want to live here. But he said he didn't even really realize that was his purpose at that time. He liked it. He's like, I just liked it. And then it hit me like, oh, I can make this my purpose. And then he said when he made it his purpose, when he made it his mission, his journey, his hero's journey, then things started coming to his aid, and it came to fruition. So for the last several years, he's been living on this mountain, in like relative solitude. There's a couple other people I think around, but yeah, him and his dog, and he loves it. He's in bliss. He loves it there. So that's one story or one example. So if you're there where it's like, I don't even know what I'm doing with my life, I feel like I need to develop a relative life before I start dissolving my ego, then trust your instinct. Yeah. It's important to sort of really look into your purpose at that point. But my advice there is, as I said before, really try to sit with it for a while. Maybe write it down. Maybe talk to someone who you can talk to who will give you a totally neutral mirror. It's not going to like try to sway you or something. To sort it out and sort out. Wait, what is there influence here about what my parents want me to do? Am I trying to be a good boy or girl? Am I trying to be a good person here? Am I trying to do what'll make me the most money? What are my motivations? And then underneath that, what is my instinct? What do I really, really want to do with my life? If I could be dead in 10 years, what would I want to spend the next 10 years doing? I don't know how long I'm going to live, right? Get to that instinct. That's what I would suggest for purpose. That's it. And then with awakening, it'll knock on your door. It'll tap you on the shoulder. Paul D, can you put the link to the doc? I think we did that. Okay. Colton. Hi, Angelo. I'm curious about your experience of the idea that our thoughts and emotion states create reality independent of action. Independent of action. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure what that means. Ideas like manifestation and the law of attraction. I think I kind of just answered that a little bit with the law of attraction stuff. So any non-duality speaker avoids talking about the law of attraction. It's called the law of not talking about law of attraction in non-duality. It's kind of a joke, but not really. So the law of attraction stuff, my take on it is this. I don't think it's complete bunk, but I think it can lead you down some totally distorted belief systems and confuse you and lead to magical thinking and stuff like that. I think it's valuable to focus your mind. And focusing your mind and your attention is valuable for focusing your behavior. That's what I really think. I think things take work, and they take sustained action, activity, and intention. So, yeah, plugging into the previous question, if you're in a place in your life where you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. That's where my heart is. Like, I keep coming back to it. That's what I want to do. I don't care what my parents say. They want me to be a doctor, but I want to be an entrepreneur. That's where my heart is. Then I think you should do it. I think you should do that. But don't just sit around and go, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. Like law of attraction, I'm going to change my thoughts. Like, don't worry about changing your thoughts. Write it down. Here's my goal. Here's an actionable step I can take towards the the smaller goal, then an intermediate goal, longer term goal. But I think it's about action. Actually, I think it's about action and work and risk and willing to fall down and stand back up and enjoy yourself and love the process of learning and growth and all that. That's what I think. Um, so there's some truth in the law of attraction stuff, but some of it turns a little goofy, I think. Okay, Jan, for teachers who teach the uncompromising message, is there a process for that? I resonate with the bottom line. Yeah, everything is a thought. Or does it create an observer? Yeah, the uncompromising message, I love it. Instead of the uncompromising message, I'm going to call it the rigid message. It's not uncompromising, it's just incomplete, really is what it is. So you could say that the absolute, to point to the absolute, that's what they're calling the uncompromising message. It's just that they don't point anywhere else, right? When they do that. So they're saying essentially that the sense of the one apart from everything is an illusion. It is, that's true. And that finds itself and believes itself to be apart from everything, which is impossible. But because of that, it doesn't actually exist. It's an illusory movement. But because it perceives otherness, it thinks it's going to find its completion in the otherness. So it seeks it, but it seeks it through its own dualistic mindset. And it's going to fail. That's all true. That's totally true. Okay. All of that is absolutely the case. Here's where they come in. Here's where they make a mistake. Thus, there's no reason to make effort, because who's going to inquire? I've actually heard Tony Parsons say this more than once. Well, who's going to do self-inquiry? Here's the truth of this. If you really see that the seeker is illusory, the self is illusory, you don't have to answer the question to who's going to do inquiry any more than you have to answer the question who's going to go start your car. Right? Who's going to bake a cake? Don't worry about that. You don't need to know that. There doesn't have to be a self for that to happen, because there never has been a self. And yet inquiry can still happen. Apparent effort can still occur, right? So that's the gist of that, and where I think that mistake gets transmitted, to be honest. And the reason I pick on this isn't to pick on other teachers, because I think it's a powerful transmission if taken the right way and in the right context, but it can be rigid. I've heard them answer these ways to people who are really in a lot of pain. And I think it's not good, skillful means. People who tend to disassociate, that can be a really dangerous message for them, harmful. There's all kinds of examples. There's an interview by a woman named Jessica. I can't remember her last name. She was on Buddha at the Gas Pump in the last year. Rick Archer interviewed her, talks about this. She also talked about it with a Tim Freak. I don't know how you say his last name, in an interview or two. And she articulates it pretty well. But I've also seen this with people. I've even heard of a couple people committing suicide. So I can't necessarily attribute that to exactly that, but I know people in that space who do say that it was that kind of a setup where they were just so disassociated, convincing themselves there's nothing they can do, there's nothing they need to do, but they were in intense emotional pain and so avoidant of it, that what always happens with repressed emotion and repressed emotional pain is it takes over your identity at some point and it takes action, right? So I think it can become toxic even in the wrong setting, in the wrong hands, and with not using skillful means. So to answer every single question with that exact same answer, it's not uncompromising, it's just unskillful. You can quote me on that. So there you go. In Zen, they know this very clearly, and they warn about this all the time. Your Zen teacher will hit you with a stick if you start talking like that. Liberation is not holding the absolute view, even with the realization of the absolute. And you have to realize it, or else you're just then it's just conceptual if you haven't realized it. But I assume at least some of these teachers have actually realized it. Speakers, right? If they've realized it, if they've realized the absolute, they actually experience it. That's great, but that's not the whole tamale. There's steps beyond that, right? That's in Tozan's ranks. That's like the third rank. There's the fifth rank, goes all the way to the fifth rank. But he just describes the relative and the absolute. So at some point, there's no fixation in the absolute anymore. It's there. It's the case. It's obvious. It's obvious that there is no form, no self, no other, no separation, no liberation, no need for liberation, no end of pain. It's the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra points to this very clearly. There's also no avoidance of anything. There's no avoidance of the relative. There's no avoidance of the conventional self, the conventional life. There's no need to talk about it in that way anymore at all. Right? So that's where liberation ultimately leads. It's absolute fluidity. You don't have to stand apart from somebody and go, essentially, no, your view is wrong. The absolute view is right. That's what you're doing when you say, when you answer a question by saying, no, there's no one there. There's no one here. There's no one that did anything. There's no one that woke up, right? There's nothing you can do. There's no one who can do that, right? There's no one who can do practice. Like you're stonewalling somebody in a sense. So that's the fear. I would call it actually a fear in disguise, a fear of actually completely just dying right back into the relative again, back and forth, relative, absolute, until they start to resonate and vibrate as one. And that's true unified liberation. That's what true non-duality, the deepest truth of non-duality is that, not just physical non-duality. Okay. I railed on that enough, didn't I? Is there somewhere we need to sign up to pay for July retreat? So if you scroll if you scroll back up, someone put a thing here. It goes right to my website. Please read the instructions carefully on the website. It's not very long. And then there's the link to look at the schedule. And then the next link is the link to pay through Stripe. And then it sends you to Zoom to sign up. So make sure you wait till it sends you to Zoom. And make sure you get a email from Zoom to make sure you're signed up. Ashley, what I just said about pleasure and pain is what I found some of the most liberating about the whole thing. Yes. That and how much it has helped my anxiety. Yes. Okay, you guys, you know how I like to give quotes from horror movies? I'm sorry, not horror movies, from books and authors and songs, right? So recently on a podcast, I actually gave a quote from a horror movie because I thought it was so good. I think there's something about art that I think even when the artist sometimes doesn't realize, I'm sure they sense it, but I don't know if they fully always realize the depth of what they actually wrote there, what it really, really points to. I think even in scripts that can come out, but in this one, I think it's really pretty interesting. So there's this old series of movies called Hellraiser, and these Cenobites are these weird beings from another dimension, and they say they're angels to some and demons to others, right? And they say all these kind of ominous things and whatever, and they're all funky, mutilated beings. But one of the quotes was from one of the characters in one of the early movies. I think it might have been the first one. He said, I thought I had gone to my limits. I hadn't. The Cenobites showed me beyond limits. They showed me experience beyond limits. They showed me pleasure and pain indivisible. That actually describes what I'm pointing to, what I was pointing to earlier. In a very deep stage of realization, when I say deep stage, I just mean there's not almost anything left. The boundaries have dissolved. And you're essentially deconstructing even the tendency to notice pleasurable from unpleasurable. You can experience it in the relative, but if you really look closely enough, you can't actually find anything there. You can't find what makes that real because it's not real. So it deconstructs. So from there, it's strange where pain and pleasure even like you can't find anything of essence that differentiates them, which is really fascinating. Now, it doesn't mean you go start hurting yourself for fun. It doesn't mean that you step out in front of cars because you lose your ability to self-protect. All of that stuff is automatic. It will just happen. So it's not about that. It's about the actual penetration of the experience in real time. It's fascinating. Tomek, can you wake up while doing shadow work? Oh, of course. You can wake up anytime. You can wake up crossing the street. You can wake up looking at a snail. You can wake up, these have all happened. You can wake up sitting on a porch. You can wake up meditating. You can wake up in a bathtub. You can wake up with the worst, in the midst of the worst disorienting anguish you've ever experienced. You can wake up when the mind is calm. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Stop avoiding. Yeah. I like it. That's your way in. And S. How do you do emotion work? Well, first read the chapter. Maybe you have, I don't know. There's a lot of approaches in the chapter on emotions. And I have a whole playlist called, I think it's called Emotions and Shadow Work, or just Shadow Work. I don't know. Can't remember the name of the playlist, but that has a ton of approaches. But, I can make it really simple. Feel and accept. And then notice the acceptance is natural. And notice the sensations are nowhere specific. They're not necessarily tied to or connected to any interpretation, belief, or even label. And also noticing the beliefs, interpretations, and labels that seem to be associated with those, but looking closely enough to see like why and how did those even get associated? And can I find the association right here? And you won't, but you keep looking and keep feeling closer and closer and closer. That's a simple version of how you do emotion work, but it's true. It's accurate. Let's see. Paul D. I see a question by Paul D that says, have you heard of it or have any thoughts? But I don't see the first part of your question. Okay. Marcy. Marcy or Marcy? What are you pointing to with insight work? Insight work, self-inquiry, inquiry into beliefs, inquiry into where the division is between subject and object, and those sorts of things. Is there form? Is there perception? I think I have a playlist called Inquiry. I hope I do. I think I do. Almost all my videos are doing one form or another of it, though. The book is very Jungian in its approach. Okay. The shadow work has been no easy thing. Yeah, I know, but it's okay. It is okay. Yeah. If you get to the point where it's okay, you're good because you'll keep doing it. And then you'll get to the point where you kind of love it. And then things just start looking so different. Like the world starts looking so different. Yeah. I'm happy for you, Ashley. Lava light. The experience of oneness is also of being alone. Yeah. See, this is the thing though. See, the mind will interpret things in such weird ways, right? So let's just go through it like in a very simple way. So there's a sense of a subject, which often is like a body or a center or a me, and an object, which is the world out there, the person I'm looking at, the object I'm looking at, right? But it seems like very much like there's a subject and an object, and they're definitely separate, right? So what happens when you experience, not believe, this is very different than belief, but experience, that is not the case. Well, is there any way to talk about that? Is there a subject? Is there an object? No, neither one. Those were beliefs that had to be in place to see the world in that distorted way. So when you don't see the world in that distorted way, they don't make any sense anymore. But the mind will still try to apply them. So it'll try to apply the I sense. It'll go, oh well, there's only me then. That's solipsism, right? Or it'll just be like, oh, there is no me, and there's no other stuff, so there's nothing, so that doesn't matter. So nothing matters. That's nihilism. Those are both interpretations, though. Does that make sense? Those experiences will go away. You might experience it very clearly as I'm the only thing there is, or I'm alone, or I'm the only one in the universe. It may quite feel like that and look like that, but that will dissolve. It won't stay that way. Janine. Hi, Janine. Listening and weeping, and I have no idea why. Well, that's great. Happens a lot. Release of emotions, release of energy. This is all just about releasing energy, pent up energy that's being unnecessarily but innocently redirected to holding a sense of self apart from a world, to holding a sense of life shouldn't be this way and let me fix it. Let me struggle against it. And the more I struggle, the more I can fix it and make it feel just a little bit better. Right? That's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy to believe you are this separate, distinct little thing. It's like a lot of energy for the whole universe to believe it's like some separate thing apart from the universe. So when you release that energy, it feels good. It can also feel like grief, loss. So sometimes tears are based on that, but it also just feels like a release of energy, which is an emotional release, and it feels good. Just let it go. Just let it all release. Thanks for your comment. Plant love, not psychic. I asked Leah earlier in the chat about the retreat. Nublar. I think that's how you would say that. When being still, I get a similar feeling like when I was learning to see stereoscopic 3D images. Yeah. And couldn't calibrate my eye muscles to see them, like trying to balance a pin. Yeah. Yep. The only thing I would say is when that starts happening, be okay with it, which I'm sure you are. And then just scan the body and see if there's any tension being held anywhere in relation to that sort of balancing. Something's trying to balance, or it's probably trying to reconstruct something. Just feel through. If there's like tension in the muscles in the jaw or in the face, temples, shoulders, maybe. Just you can even like jiggle your body around a little bit and see is there some tension holding, and sometimes just relaxing different parts of the body will cause it to settle even more. That's one thing you can do there. You don't have to, but it'll settle over time. It's frustrating when the mind gets in the way when I get tired after a while. Yeah, that definitely look for tension. If your mind is tense, your body's tense somewhere. Might be in some just discrete area, or it might be quite intense, but often it's one little discrete area of the body. Less reactivity. Good. Yeah, it's interesting when you stop externally reacting, you'd think it would calm you down right away, and it can, but what happens then is you realize, oh, I can't blame the external world anymore. I can't project all my anger outward. So sometimes not you project it inward, but you feel it very directly. And like, shit, now I have to deal with it. I have to actually feel it. I can't distract myself through drama, through blaming, through whatever. Right. So it's like you take it on board, which is a movement of maturity, but it's also like a reckoning. You're like, oh shit, there's a lot here, but it'll just continue to calm and stuff over time. So good job. Ian. Wondering about the value of intuitively sensing presence versus examining experienced thoughts more deeply. I would say sometimes I read stuff like that and I go, well, are those different to you? Like somehow, is the mind dividing up your experience unnecessarily? It's going, well, this is presence, this is consciousness, this is awareness. I'm not saying you're doing this, but consider it. Like I get questions like this a lot. Like, do you mean awareness when you say consciousness or presence, or this teacher calls it this? Is that your experience? And it's like, what that says your mind is doing is trying to decide like which one's right, which one's better. I don't care about any of that really. I care that you're going directly to your own experience. So when you drop into what you call presence, and then your mind goes, well, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be in presence. Maybe I should be examining experience or thoughts. What that tells me is all it tells me is your attention bounced back in your mind, and it's fine. Just go back to the direct experience and don't worry about what it's called. That's generally what I would tell almost anyone, because the terms I use are provisional and they're just used to point to something else usually, or to a relationship, or they're used to undo a habituated tendency that makes things look a certain way so that we can unravel those fixations. That's why I use terms, but I really don't want anyone to adopt the terms and like dissect their experience into, is this presence? Is this awareness? Is this rigpa? Is this consciousness? Like that's not helpful really. Right. What's most helpful is go right into your immediate experience right now and don't stop. Don't turn back. Don't look back. Don't analyze. Don't label. Cool. DVD Mon. I don't know if that's Jamaican, but I keep thinking it's Jamaican. I've been to Jamaica a few times. It's like my favorite place. Dream. Inception. Yeah. Ashley. Gotta go. Lunch break's over. Nice to see you. Back to work. Oh, the playlist. Good. Cool. Yeah. John Somerville, you're welcome. Amit, is ego co-opting in this process, or is it completely driven from deep inside? How much of the identity is stuck in doing? How much of identity is stuck in doing the process, like reading books, watching non-duality videos, etc.? This is kind of a meta question, right? It's a bit like distanced out a bit, because it doesn't really matter, right? So like if you're engaged in something in the moment, then just consider that the only thing that ever existed. If you're watching a video, that's all there is. You don't need to worry about like, is my ego co-opting, or what should I do next, or what did I do before? Am I watching too many videos? Just totally watch that video. You know, if you turn it, and then that's it. You know, let that be all there is, even if it's uncomfortable. Then turn it off, right? And when you turn it off, and then it's like, okay, then what's the next thing that's going to happen? Well, the body just sits here quietly for half an hour, silent meditation or presence. Don't do anything with that either, right? Don't do anything with that. Don't go, oh, should I be up doing something? Should I watch another video? No, just notice what's happening, just this peace. No labels. And then say a half hour later, the body gets up and walks and goes outside. Now you're looking at birds. Just look at birds. Don't do anything else. Don't worry about anything else. Don't think of it, oh, is this a practice? How do I practice looking at birds? Like, don't do any of that. Just the birds, right? Just that. Just the visual experience of that. The sound experience of that. It will just engulf you. Let it engulf you. Let every experience engulf you, and you'll never have to worry about doing more or less of anything. Really. There's no formula, right? I think the mind often thinks there's a formula for this. Like, okay, watch this much video, this many books, read this many, talk to the teacher, go to the retreat. All those things are helpful, sure, of course. But you're going to do what you're going to do, and you're not going to do what you're not going to do. So don't get too meta about it. Don't get too thinking about practice. Just practice it in the moment. Give yourself to that. If you could give yourself fully to the moment, really let it completely overtake you, you would never need to practice again. You would never have to question what to do ever again. You could practice or not. You could go to retreat or not. You can meditate or not. It's like the clarity will always be there. Cool. Hopefully that was helpful. Okay, we did another scroll down really far for some reason. Let me just catch back up. Dun, 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 dun. Every once in a while, this thing scrolls really far down. Okay, cool. I think I found myself again. No, audiobooks usually don't have soundscapes. Okay, I didn't think so. Ryan Bocut. Many people use the terms self and ego interchangeably, but isn't the self just one part of the ego? I would say it the other way around, probably, but it really depends on who you're listening to, and even if you're listening to one person, they may use it differently at different times. Like Adyashanti will say that he kind of calls like the death of the ego something like, you're awakening from the level of mind, or awakening from mind identification. But the death of the self is a much more deep, intimate, very deeply rooted process. And I think that's a pretty good description. It doesn't matter what words he's using there, but I think it's actually quite accurate. So whether you call that first level the ego and you call the end of the self, that's very accurate because it feels like the end of the self. But it doesn't matter that much. It doesn't matter the terms. Now, when I talk about ego, I usually mean it. It's like a pedagogical term. It's used for It's used to personify something that doesn't really get personified. That's not real. It has no will, has no agency. But I use it because it's the only way to talk about certain things in that setting. So, like in my book, I think in the mind identification chapter, maybe, or thoughts, probably mind identification, I do talk about ego and what I mean when I say ego. Um, it's just a collection of mental processes that collectively sort of feel like all of the aspects of self, like agency and doership, and being time bound, being physically bound, being space bound, and all that, being discrete. The self structure is a very, very fundamental, energetic um, basis for all of that. So, generally speaking, I do kind of probably think along the lines of the way Adyashanti uses the terms. When I say the death of self, I mean something very specific. When I talk about ego, I'm usually personifying something in a fun way to talk about, like, the selfing mechanisms or the tendency to become mind identified again or buy back into our thoughts or our story or our narrative or whatever, right? So, yeah, it depends on who you're talking to. These words, again, it's like if someone uses a word, it's really important to ask them, well, what do you mean by that right now? But otherwise, it can be very confusing because the term ego is used in a lot of different ways, right? It's used one way by, like, Freudian psychiatry, and then used all kinds of other different ways in spirituality. In the psychedelic world, they talk about ego death all the time as an experience. There's a lot of ways to use the term. Okay. Soundscapes are distracting. Okay. No soundscapes in the book. You got it. Love the soundscapes. Okay. They're back on. We're going to do soundscapes. All right. Janine, I found it very helpful to hold intention of loving kindness and gratitude. I think that's a very good practice. Buddha would agree, I think, based on, like, the meta practices, and that part of Buddhism is very important in the suttas. Pajai, I hope I said that right. Kundalini activation process, or inner dance, both somehow similar to TRE with spontaneous body movements, is also very cool. Release emotions, tensions. I'm sure it is. I think now that I've done it, like, I also, which interestingly, a couple things about this. One is when I learned TRE, which is very recently, I was like, oh, I did this years ago. Like, I used to find myself doing that at night. I would spontaneously get up out of bed, lay on the carpet, and just shake because I just had to. It was the energy was being released. So a lot of people do find themselves doing it anyway, but the idea of doing it proactively and consistently to regulate and release energy at a subtle level ongoing so it doesn't build up is a really good idea. But absolutely, the Kundalini activation process, I'm sure, is very similar. Someone also told me there's a form of Qigong that's very much like this, except you sit in a chair. Um, Also, in retreat, before I learned TRE a few years ago, I came up with this idea of intuitive movement, which can turn very much into that. It can be trembling, it can be spontaneous movements or a sort of spontaneous dance, vocalizations, and that's changed throughout retreats and stuff too. So, I also find that I think it's very similar, probably, when you see people with autism stimming. I think it's very much like that. I think the stimming has the same effect, actually, and they just intuitively know how to do that to release energy through the body movements. So, yeah. Okay. Ooh la la. I'm fine with sound with videos, but for book, I like it simpler. You got it. Okay. We're definitely not doing a soundscape in the book now, unless I get another comment. I like them too, just not for an audiobook. Okay. Now it's for sure definite. There's no way I could be talked back into it. I'm so glad you focus on addressing the shadow. Such important work. So hard though. Yeah, it's hard. As I said before, I still have people who seem pretty realized who will just argue endlessly about this in comments. There's nothing to do there. There's no shadow. It's like amazing, actually. And it's like, "Methink you doth protest too much." Like, don't you notice that every single time I make a video, you comment the same thing about not needing to do shadow work? Why are you doing that? Like, just look inside and just see, why am I actually reacting to this? Probably because something inside you wants to address that. But anyway, it's amazing how much sometimes people are really resistant to this. They want spirituality to be about, like, not feeling or something. I don't know why that comes into our mind. Like, we somehow assume it's going to be about not feeling anything ever again, or Probably because we wrongly associate emotion with the problem. Like I want to never feel bad emotions or negative emotions, right? Well, why are you calling them negative emotions in the first place? I never want to feel sadness again. Well, that's kind of silly. I mean, there's almost no way you're never going to feel sadness again, right? Once you die, I guess, but loss is part of life, right? It's just a physiologic reaction. So, yeah. So when I talk about shadow work and emotion work, I just do it because in good conscience. I do it because I know you're going to do it. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying, um, I'm not trying to over dramatize the situation. I'm saying it because I know when you wake up, you're going to face the shadow. It's going to happen. It's going to come to you. And if you're sort of ready for it in the sense that it doesn't mean anything went wrong, you have some skillful means to navigate it, you're going to be better off. That's why I say it. That's why I talk about it. Simply, it's just part of the deal. And I've seen many, many people wake up at all different stages, and they all go through this. Even the ones I know who like online don't necessarily talk about it, but I do know them. They've gone through it too. They just don't publicly talk about it, maybe. And it can be as much sometimes as just intense physical pain. Yeah. Hannah, the videos seem to be the perfect message for the moment. Good. I'm glad to hear it. John, everyone has been great. Oh, good. I'm sure I've had some bad ones in there somewhere. DVD Mon, didn't know there's a limit on the internet. You may fill up all this space if you make too many videos. I know, right? Sometimes I'm like, what are you talking about? Please don't stop making videos. I probably will keep making them for the foreseeable future because I enjoy it. So it seems relevant to do. If someone is doing shadow and emotion work, still awakening, even if they're never heard of awakening. That's an interesting thing. It's like with really good therapy and those kinds of modalities, if you keep going down through, whether it's through mindfulness, awareness of your beliefs and your emotions, you're going to come to that edge of your identity. And I actually think a lot of times in things like therapy, that's where the therapist starts to limit the client sometimes because they get scared without knowing it, without realizing it. So they can project the whole paradigm of I'm the emotionally healthy one, you're the one that needs my help, and use that paradigm to hold distance and kind of keep something going. Now, I think a very good therapist can get you a long way, but sometimes if you need to go through that identity barrier and they won't and they're scared of it, then it can limit the situation. There are therapists who have gone through it and they can help you too through it. But yeah. So I always kind of wonder that at some point you're going to face it. You're going to be looking, off the edge. You're going to be looking into the abyss, and you might just turn around and pretend it never happened because it scared you so much. But again, that's why I talk about fear and the fear barrier, because then oh, okay, that's supposed to happen. There is a fear barrier, and that's okay. Violet is in the house. All right. Hello, Violet. Fairy, butterfly, heart. Hi, Violet. Hi, Violet. Hi, Violet. It's interesting because I feel like I have miles of patience for my family, but far less for people I'm close to. Probably repress a lot for the sake of fam, but not for strangers. Yeah, everyone has it differently. Sometimes some people can't stand to be around their family. I mean, everyone's wired a little differently, but when we're in these close emotional connections and there's trauma, you're going to have to work through it one way or another, or else that connection will end and you'll come to another connection and the same thing will happen. At some point, you just got to address it, right? Yeah. It can be your kids, your parents, your lover, your even close friends sometimes. Okay. Rolando, can you talk about the cosmic joke? Yeah. I think I don't want to tell the joke. I want you to be in on the joke. I think you're already in on the joke a little bit, but yeah, I think I'm inclined to say just don't take all this too seriously, right? Because I do talk about intense stuff for sure. But life is full of intense stuff like death, violence, disease. As long as we identify with these bodies, that's all really scary stuff. and it just is. It's fine, but it's part of life, right? All these things, all these eventualities. Um, so this all comes down to identity. When the fundamental mistake or misperception called identity is corrected, it starts looking, it's really kind of funny in a certain way because none of this ever happened. None of it matters. Um, there's nothing heavy. There's nothing problematic. Your life has no significant purpose or meaning in the way you ever thought about it. And yet everything now is sort of alive. It doesn't need meaning. It's so alive. It doesn't need purpose. It's so alive. It's so vibrant and intimate and just so real, so right. Everything is like that. Everything, every experience, every sensation. There's not a better or worse. There's not a later or an earlier. There's not another place, another time, no problem to solve, no others to navigate relationships with, no self to defend. So it's very simple and it's kind of a joke. All of the stuff we thought was serious because it gets turned completely on its head. It doesn't look anything like it used to look. And you carry it around in a way that like you can never talk about. Even if you talk about it, you can never talk about it. Like I'm talking about it. You just can't talk about it. So it's a joke. So don't take any of this too seriously. And even though you felt like you're the one that started the journey and working through the journey and working hard and all that stuff and doing the practices and suffering and learning not to suffer and all that, even all of that is not really. So you don't need to bypass it or actively negate it, but it's not really the truth either. When I wake up in the middle of the night and I listen to one of your videos, my mind is much more malleable and I get it more deeply. Oh, cool. My mind totally stops and daytime not so much though. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised actually. Sleep is a very good time to access the unconscious. The identity is not so solid, um, not so rigid. The sense of doership is not so strong. The sense of urgency about navigating your life and your duties and your responsibilities is not nearly as strong at night. You're closer to emotion too, and fears and doubts, and like emotional textures are more accessible as well at night. But certainly, it's going to be more, your consciousness is going to be more malleable. Eric has arrived. All right. Instinct is key, and approaching life as a hero's journey moves us to our moves us toward our instincts. I think. So this is Eric from Listen to Sleep, and I check out his stuff. Like seriously, he really, his heart is so in this for people. It's amazing. Like it just is. His heart is so in this project for people because he sees a lot of it. I think started with. I'll let him talk about it, but a lot of it started with kind of becoming well known on TikTok and bumping into so many Generation Z people who are just so kind of lost in life, and he really felt for them. And so he wanted to bring his own life experience to them in a way that's accessible and meaningful. And I love it. His stuff's great. Instinct is key in approaching life as a hero's journey can move us toward our instincts. Yes. He corrected his sentence there. Sarah, oops. I seem to have thrown you a few hearts. They're purely platonic. There's a lot of hearts up in here. That's okay. I take them as platonic. Leah, Clive Barker. Yeah. Clive Barker is the one that wrote those movies. Link above. Have you heard of it? Link above. Thoughts. I'm sorry. I missed it probably somewhere. I kind of looked above before I didn't see it. Chris G. Hi, Angelo. I feel like form and emptiness or self and no self flicker many, many times per second. Is there a skillful way of working with this? I think that's fine. I would just make sure that this is not fully existing for you in the realm of non-conceptuality. The realm of non-conceptuality is that endless free fall from mind, which is quite beautiful, quite lovely. And it doesn't have to go away. But that will become, how to say this, anchored in the non-dualistic vivid sense textures. The sense textures are very important in this. So make sure that sense textures are also there in a non-dualistic way in your experience. And that's where you're going to find where form and emptiness are really not two. That's how I want to point you here. I don't want to say a lot about this. I want to say a little about this because it's very specific. Okay. Still not finding the link. Okay. Susan, excellent. Oh gosh, I just flopped down a whole bunch again. Nope. Hello, Christina. Christina, hello. Oh, okay. Michael Ireland. That's a fusion of two people. No, Michael Zarov is the one who does, he has a website called The Sherpa Within, I think. He does some like emotion work, very specific inquiry in the Scott Killaby format. And then Eric Ireland, Erik Ireland from Listen to Sleep, he actually commented just above your comments here. He made 2 comments about the hero's journey, and check his stuff out. Okay. Rolando has gotten the cosmic joke. Chris has definitely gotten the cosmic joke. I know that. My video shirts. The best ones I can find, the best t-shirt graphic company that I found is Defect, Dephect. They may be called Defect Records, but they hire independent artists actually to do the designs, and they have some of the best designs I've ever seen. There's another one called Into the Am that's really good. And there's a third one called Viking Goods. They have really good stuff too. Mike B, back to sound and language processing. I just see a distinction between the thought of the sound of a lawnmower and the thought of an internal voice. Okay. One is just sound. One has baked in meaning. Only in the next thought. That's when a thought reflects a thought. So you can imagine the sound of a lawnmower. Yes. Right. You could also say that has baked in meaning, right? If you wanted to, you could say this, the sound of a lawnmower, that means that there's a combustion engine burning fuel, consuming oxygen, creating carbon dioxide. You could say that has baked in meaning. Or you could say the thought of an internal voice. I am a good person. That has baked in meaning because I am a good person means that other people who come in contact with, right? That's just one thought reflecting another thought. Or it's just a thought and then another thought following it. That's the key. The reason this matters or could matter isn't to make a philosophical position for you. It's to look directly at what's happening. And when you see that there's no, because if it's not just a thought reflecting another thought and a thought reflecting a sensation, if that's not like, let me ask you it this way. What part of you wants to not see that, right? Or what part of you thinks that sounds weird? It's the part of you that thinks there's a you in there. That's where this leads, right? So if you really look and go, well, wait a minute, I can have one single thought that says it's a conceptual narrative thought. Like, oh, I must be a good person because I gave the homeless guy $1. That's one thought. Stop right there. Is there any meaning or purpose unless you start creating other thoughts? No, the mind is blank. At least mine is. There's nothing there. There's no one between those thoughts. There's no one choosing thoughts. There's no agent. There's no someone in there. There's no homunculus. There's no center. That's what's hard to see when it's like thought, right? But they're just thoughts. Slow them down. Slow them down. Watch Papaji. He's really good at pointing to this. He just says, don't start a thought. Don't make a thought. Don't move your mind. Don't move your mind. Don't move your mind. Don't create anything. That's where I want you to go. That's where the answer is. It's not an understanding about thoughts or not thoughts or what they are and stuff. Do you have any celebrities who have contacted you about your videos? No need to name any. Minor celebrities, I suppose. No Brad Pitts or any of that. I tried to, someone messaged me and they're like, I want you to interview Jewel. And I'm like, okay, the chance that I can actually get Jewel to even see an email from me is like nil, right? So when the people are really famous, they just have barriers. They don't sound like their email is public, right? So they have a, what do you call, like a publicist that you have to get a hold of, and the publicist is going to go, okay, does your YouTube channel have 10 million subscribers? Oh, it doesn't. Well, then they're not going to, they're never going to even hear from you. So I told this person that, and she's like, well, you should try anyway. So I did. I tried to send something to her publicist and stuff because she had a video that I watched that this person sent to me. It was pretty good, actually. She went through some kind of inquiry process when she was a teenager and she was homeless. It was really cool. And she actually realized I'm not my thoughts, and her clarity around that was really good. So I thought it'd be a fun interview, but of course, I didn't hear back. So yeah, it's with people who are like truly famous, it's pretty much like not going to happen unless they happen to find you and contact you or something like that. But I would love to interview I'd like to interview Jim Carrey if he ever, but I'm never going to get a hold of him. So he'd have to get a hold of me, or, anybody anywhere that's gone through this process. I would love to interview them. I know a couple like people, I know a couple like Hollywood movie directors and producers as well that have gone through awakening. Comments with links get filtered out. Oh yeah, shoot. I made one with a link to the page on Angelo's site about the online retreat. Oh, I already put one up there. After refreshing the page, the comment is gone. So I put one up there. If you look way up at the top, I already put a link. Oh no, shoot, someone else did. Wasn't me. That's the Google Doc. Oh, it did. Yours did disappear. Okay, let me put a link. And then I think I'm done, because I think I'm done with comments, and it's 2 hours. It goes by so fast. So I'll put a link to the website here. Or you can just go to my website. It's under the retreats section. Any last questions while I'm pulling this up? Okay. So I'm going to put the link here. This is the link for the retreat. Swag online retreat. Cool. Okay, let me check and see if there's any last questions. You're welcome. Wanda, I love the little Wanda picture. Yeah, don't take this stuff so seriously. I mean, you can still engage it, watch videos, read books, meditate, all this stuff. You can do it with just do it with ease. Don't do it like, hey, I have to force this to give me enlightenment. I have to penetrate the barriers of identity. Like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You've got to show up. Be alert. The best thing you can do is be alert. Alert to everything. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. See you, Ryan. See you, John. See you, Badillion. Badillion. I love the names on YouTube. They're just awesome. DVD Mon. You're welcome. Leah, good to see you. You're very welcome. Alec, you're welcome. Mark, you're welcome. Amy, you're very welcome. Rolando, good to see you. I hope you have a great weekend too, Rolando. Carrie, see you later. Rob, see you. Jade, bye, Jade. Cernish, bye, Cernish. Cherry, see ya. Nico, Sunship, see you later. Pajai, see you later. Sarah, later. Give me a bunny, 2 Kimuras, and a cone dog. Love it. Ryan, I'm glad you like the Q&As. I'm glad they're helpful. Madge Johnson or Mage Johnson, you're very welcome. Zen Ghost, you're welcome. Chris, you're welcome. See you later. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Frank. Okay, y'all. Marcy, later. You're welcome. Janine, you're very welcome. Okay. I'm out of here. Much love. Enjoy your weekend. And catch you on the flip side. We'll do a double barrel in a couple weeks. I'll post it soon.